Psychic mediums claim to have the ability to communicate with the deceased. Can they really reach those on the other side? Do you believe they truly possess this special ability? And how or when and where did it all start? Hello, fellow sinners, and welcome. My name is Anissa, and I have a serious, unhealthy obsession with everything paranormal, weird, the strange, the unusual, etc. If you are into that sort of thing, feel free to enter my dark and strange little world, and let's get into tonight's story in 3, 2, 1. Tonight's story is believed to have been what brought on the rise of spiritualism, and it all began with just two young girls, Maggie and her sister Kate. The two sisters would claim to hear tapping and rapping sounds on the walls and furniture of their home. They claimed to have been hearing these strange tapping sounds for a while. However, they didn't bring this up to their parents' attention until March 31st, just a day before April Fool's Day. Make of that what you will. It would be later said that the previous owners of the home had also heard these tapping sounds. The only difference was that Maggie and Kate seemed to have the ability to communicate with the spirit who was believed to be behind it all. Kate even awoke her entire family one night screaming and claiming to have felt a cold hand touch her. The girls even nicknamed this so-called spirit Mr. Splitfoot at one point. I don't know, that's as creative as they could get. However, that quickly changed when the girls were able to determine who the spirit actually belonged to. They believed this so-called spirit was believed to be that of a peddler who had been murdered in the farmhouse just 5 years before. Upon hearing the girls' claims of this so-called spirit who would communicate with them via taps and sounds, their mother began to ask this spirit questions, to which the spirit would answer correctly. For example, when asked how many kids she had, the spirit would answer with the appropriate number of taps. The spirit would also answer correctly when asked about the girls' ages. I believe one of the girls was only 11 when this happened, so the mother is asking, "How old is Kate?" And the spirit would then proceed to tap 11 times. The mother, probably amazed or surprised by this, I don't know if excitedly, but she goes and tells one of her neighbors, like, "Look, you have to come here. You have to hear what's happening over in our house." So this neighbor goes over to their home and witnesses these sounds. As you can imagine, this neighbor told someone who then told someone else who told someone else, and so on and so forth. And the word began to spread very rapidly. The girls were then sent to live with their older sister Leah in a farmhouse in Hydesville, New York. Now, Leah had already gotten word of what was going on and what their sisters had the capability of doing. And it is said, or it is believed, that Leah immediately saw dollar signs. You know, in the cartoons when their eyes just turned to dollar signs, that was Leah. She said, "Oh, they can communicate with spirits, you say? That's great." Leah then uses this opportunity to monetize off of it, and it soon turned out she too had the ability to communicate with spirits. You don't say. The sisters then began hosting seances and helping people communicate with their departed loved ones. A man by the name Isaac Post asked Leah to communicate with his deceased daughter. He then went on to rent the Rochester's Corinthian Hall in November of 1849. This was said to be the biggest hall at the time. The girls demonstrated their powers in front of a paying crowd of nearly 400 people. After their demonstration or show, the girls would be taken into a private chamber where Amy Post, Isaac's wife, along with some other women, would have the girls disrobe or undress, because they wanted to be able to examine or inspect to make sure that the girls weren't concealing any sort of object or anything that would help them produce these tapping or knocking sounds. Nothing was ever found on the girls, and this only helped to further prove their credibility. Several skeptics would attend the girls' seances in an attempt to try and find some sort of trickery, but they would find themselves convinced otherwise before leaving. The girls would continue to hold public demonstrations, and it wasn't long before more people began to come forth claiming to be mediums as well and having special abilities themselves. Sisters Maggie and Kate began to tour and take their gifts to other cities as well, while Leah would stay back and continue to perform seances from home. One of Maggie and Leah's tour stops was in Philadelphia, and among one of the attendees was a man by the name of Elijah Kent Kane, who immediately fell in love upon laying eyes on Maggie. Maggie was 13 years younger than him. 13 years younger. But hey, he didn't care. This wasn't a problem for him. Despite falling for Maggie, however, Elijah always believed she was a fraud, but he could never prove it. He basically said, I know you're some way, somehow tricking me or doing these things, but I don't know how. It is believed that Maggie and Elijah kept their relationship secret, as it would be frowned upon by Elijah's family due to her occupation, or what she did with the spiritualism stuff and all of this. You see, Elijah was a religious man, and he viewed spiritualism in a negative light. He wanted Maggie to marry him, but that would mean she would have to leave her so-called act behind. He would also encourage Maggie to be baptized in the Catholic Church. Elijah ended up passing in 1857, and although Maggie completely abandoned spiritualism in honor of her deceased husband, she unfortunately turned to alcohol and began to drink very heavily. Maggie began to struggle financially, and after Elijah's passing, his family denied her any rights to his estate or money. Kate, Maggie's sister, on the other hand, she went on to marry a spiritualist, and she continued to develop her gifts and abilities. She began to communicate with spirits not only via tapping sounds and knocking. Oh no. Now she could allegedly communicate with spirits via writing, and would utilize blank cards where words would magically appear as a so-called message from the deceased. She was allegedly even able to contact the spirit of the one and only Benjamin Franklin himself, who announced his presence by writing his name on a card. Kate's business boomed, especially after the Civil War, where most people who had lost loved ones seemed to seek and find comfort in spiritualism. After the Civil War, the number of believers is believed to have increased by the millions. Kate's success seemed to also have a downside, unfortunately. The more she delivered, the more the public seemed to demand from her. It seemed her gift had now also become a curse. It all began to become too much for her, and she too sadly turned to drinking. The sisters sadly also had a falling out with each other. Kate and Maggie were upset with Leah, and they accused her of using them to run her little scheme when they were only young girls. Maggie was especially upset with Leah, as Leah had deemed her an incompetent parent due to her drinking. And not to mention, it was said that when Maggie and her husband Elijah, when he was still living, they had wanted to keep their relationship a secret, remember? However, word got out about their relationship, and Maggie for some reason blamed Leah for this. She believed that she was the one that started spreading the word and started disclosing that information to the public. It is believed that Maggie eventually decided to come forth and claim the whole thing was a hoax just to get back at Leah. Now, not to mention, Maggie had also been paid $1,500, which, keep in mind, back then that was a lot of money. And this was during a period when Maggie was financially struggling. Maggie claimed that she and her sisters had tied an apple to a string and learned to maneuver it in order to produce the knocking sounds. She also said that she and her sisters eventually learned how to pop their joints and knuckles on their toes. How does one train themselves to crack the joints and knuckle? Let me try this. I'm wearing pajama pants. Don't judge me. Party at the top, pajama pants on bottom. Here we go. I did it. I popped something. But that doesn't seem loud enough to be convincing that that's a ghost or spirit. Well, I don't know. Let's try it. Is there a spirit here? I think something's wrong with me. I should go see my doctor. And Maggie, okay, just kind of like me, she even goes on to remove her shoe to demonstrate how they would do this. Now, Maggie then went on to recant her confession a year later. So she took it back. She said, JK, I was lying. I needed the money. I don't know if she said exactly that, but she said, I was just lying. It was all real. But as you can imagine, people didn't really believe her anymore. Now, sadly, Leah ended up passing away in 1890. Kate followed only 2 years later in 1892, and it is believed she passed due to her drinking habits. And Maggie passed only 8 months later in March of 1983. And sadly, the sisters never made amends. They never made up. And after the sisters' deaths, bones were discovered in their childhood home in Hydesville, New York, which brought some people to believe that the sisters' claims of a murdered peddler, remember this story, that's who they believed the spirit belonged to? So they believed that maybe their claims had been true after all. The bones were then examined by doctors, and honestly, I read different accounts in different places, so I myself am confused by the end of this. But just to let you know, in some places it was said that the bones were confirmed to indeed be that of human remains, with some animal bones mixed in. However, in other places I read that these were actually proven to be only animal bones. So I don't 100% know, and I wasn't alive during this time. I can't tell you. So unless some way somehow I get my hands on a time machine and I can go back, then I'll let you know. And I should also let you know that there was also a rumor that a man living in the area had planted the bones as a joke, but that then he became too embarrassed to admit it. Today, people still seem to find themselves conflicted. Some believe that these sisters were the real deal, while others say, nope, 100% they were hoax. They were a hoax. They were frauds. They fooled everyone. Everybody plays the fool sometimes. There's no exception to the rule. So what do you believe? Let me know down in the comments below. But before you do, wait un momento. I thought it would only be appropriate that the way I should come to my conclusion is if I ask the tarot cards. Let's use our own method of, it's related to spiritualism. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's ask, shall we? I'm going to set this down. Hold on. Bear with me. I'm going to use the Aleister Crowley deck. Aleister Crowley. I don't know. Mr. Crowley. I'm using his deck. Okay, let's ask. All right, here we go. Asking the cards. All right, let's ask. Were the Fox sisters, were they frauds? Were they fooling everyone? Or were they the real deal? Oh, whoa. Un momento, por favor. We have the Four of Cups and the Eight of Discs, which is also known as Pentacles. Four of Cups says luxury. See that? And Eight of, what did I say? Pentacles. Pentacles are like money. Okay, according to my response, they did this for the money. And if they didn't, this is just a YouTube video. Chill, Fox sisters. Don't haunt me now that y'all are ghosts. With all respect, con todo respeto. There you have it. According to Aleister Crowley's deck, they did it for the money. Shame. Okay, well, I'm going to stop it there. Thank you for tuning into this video. If you're interested in tarot readings, I have another little YouTube channel I just started. It's called The Occult. No, I'm lying to you. That's not what it's called. I'm going to put it on the screen. It's called the Bilingual Bruja, because I do tarot readings in English and Spanish. So if you're interested in that, head over there. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have a good night, gals and ghouls. And until next time, hopefully you don't hear no tapping sounds or cracking sounds of bones, unless they're your own. And if you do have cracking bones like me, we should see our doctor. We really should. Is that normal? Is that, I don't know. Okay. Bye-bye. And if they didn't, this is just... She claimed to be able to communicate with spirits via writing and would utilize blank cards where words. Hello, my words. She was allegedly able to contact none other than the spirit of Benjamin Franklin. I am sorry, Mr. Franklin.